Okay, looks like we're coming together. Let's see how close we are to getting everybody up and running here. Let's see. Looks like everything is going Twitch, yeah, all the way to Foxhole. This is good. This is good. That's what we want to see. All right, let's make sure that Foxhole is running. Sure we got some. It one more time. We'll try it. And oh yeah, I can see it. It's happening. Yeah, there it is. Okay, Foxhole's up. Everything's up. Chat room is filling in nicely. Good. Okay, we will bring studio on here shortly. About 1 minute or so. This is America Free Radio. We're going to be streaming live in about 1 minute. So hang in there. Lots to go over, lots of exciting stuff. Lots of ways for you to participate. Dawn 5 is in Foxhole. Good to see you. Okay, let's go ahead and bring the studio
That is
in.
Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs, government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
We did not engage in conflict that was out of line with our mission.
Is it disloyalty? Is it sedition? Is it treason to oppose the hands of tyranny? Never!
I will never send troops anywhere on a mission of that kind without telling them that if somebody shoots at them, they can darn well shoot back.
I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty! Oh, give me death!
A dark cloud is finally lifting across the world as U.S. military intelligence and their global partners are destroying the deep state criminal power structure that has ruled over our planet for hundreds of years.
We are free with the God-given right, and we shall not yield that right to any power on earth.
Hi, I'm Scott McKay. The world is at, and I am your host on The Tipping Point on Revolution Radio, where every Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, we bring you the latest in this ensuing takedown of this global criminal empire.
That's an image of strength.
You'll get the raw, hard truth here on The Tipping Point. So come join us Mondays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern in Studio B at revolution.radio.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio.
First hour, here we go. Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains through the America Free Radio studios on Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com, the number one listener-supported network possibly in the world. This is where the past meets the future, and here the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. So I have a few little things to go over right now. You remember the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, right? They got together, they signed the document. And, of course, the global syndicate, which in those days was the British Empire, hunted down all 56 of those signers and destroyed their lives. Cut off their money. Most of them died paupers. Some of them were killed. Some of them were jailed. But none of the 56 signers went on to enjoy the wealth that should have been theirs for founding a new nation. Well, as you know, during Memorial Day weekend, patriots from all over the country went to Dallas, Texas, and we met at the Patriot Voice Roundup in Dallas with Michael Flynn and Sidney Powell, and of course Jordan Sather was there, and Zach Payne with Red Pill 78 was there, and Cade Awakening was there, and several other of my colleagues were there, some on stage, some giving interviews in the media room. Now, I just discovered that the Global Syndicate is now going after some of the patriots that attended that event, not the least of which was my good friend Zach Payne. Yes, the Global Syndicate went after his Patreon account and cut him off. That's his money. That's his livelihood. That's his bank. Those are his friends. Those are his friends and his supporters. And the Global Syndicate went after Patreon and cut off his money. Now, I'm not saying that I can do anything myself very much, but if you want to help, you contact me direct, and we'll figure out a way to make sure that that Zach gets compensated for the great content that he's bringing forth. I'm trying to give as much pressure as I can to outfits on Sirius XM to see if the great talent that is Zach Payne gets a proper outlet, because patriots like that need to be heard. Okay. Yes, in the chat room they're saying they played dirty. Yes, they played dirty. They have no heart. They have no heart whatsoever. So let's see. I've got a lot of stories to go over tonight. One is on ancient water. This is going to, by the way, be in the newsletter. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter, it is so simple to do. You just go to my website, brooksagnew.com, or americafreeradio.com, and sign up for it. It's free. I don't ask for a lot of information. Just your name and email address. That's it. And then twice a week on Wednesdays and Sunday nights, I will send you a newsletter with some notes from the program so you can refresh your memory. And also a link to the YouTube so that you can watch it direct. You don't have to go to YouTube and search for me because, frankly, they're not going to let you find me. But I give you a direct link. And, you know, I sometimes do it myself. Just click on it during the day, put my headset on, draw my blueprints or whatever it is that I'm doing, and listen to the program. And except that it's my voice, it's actually pretty interesting. So we cover a lot of science here. It's kind of a cross between science and spirituality. I don't do politics. I do government. There's a big difference. Big difference. William, thank you very much for that good compliment. Watch the vids. I will donate hundreds. Okay. I'm going to say this. All the donations that come in tonight, I'm going to make sure that they get to Zach. Okay? It's just a gift, because this is what I call birthday week. My birthday and all my kids' birthdays are this week. So I feel very generous. And those of you that are listening on D-Live, I'll be giving away some lemons here in the second hour. So just hang out. And If the video is working very well, then just hang out there. If not, then you can pick one of the other platforms that we're streaming live on: YouTube, Twitter, DLive, Twitch, Facebook, and of course, Foxhole. We love our friends at Foxhole. It is growing so much. I can't believe it. So John Stubbins was on today, and Due Diligence is coming on later on tonight. Let's see who's live right now. Oh, Patriot News. You really want to be fascinated. Luke Slytalker. If you don't listen to him, watch that. He is very interesting and a hacker supreme. TikTok's Opinion, NBC Show, PS8. Carl Bond. I was looking for a Lara of Sirius. Normally I see her on Wednesday nights, and I'm not seeing her there. So I hope everything's okay over there. Ancient water. The world's oldest known water. What do you think? 1,000 years old? 2,000? The world's oldest known water was found in an ancient pool below Canada in 2016. And it is at least 2 billion years old. Yep. Back in 2013, scientists found water dating back about 1.5 billion years old at the Kidd Mine in Ontario. But in 2016, deeper investigation revealed an even older source buried underground. The initial discovery of the ancient liquid in 2013 came at a depth of around 2.4 kilometers. That's pretty deep in the ground, about 1.5 miles, in an underground tunnel in the mine. But the extreme depth of the mine, which at 3.1 kilometers is the deepest base metal mine on Earth, gave researchers the opportunity to keep digging. So the 2013 find really pushed back our understanding of how old flowing fresh water could be. And so it really drove us to explore further. Geochemist Barbara Sherwood Lawler from the University of Toronto told Rebecca Morell at the BBC. This is a BBC article. And we took advantage of the fact that the mine is continuing to explore deeper and deeper into the earth. So the 2016 source was found at about 3 kilometers down. That's almost 2 miles. And according to Sherwood Lawler, there's a lot more of it than you might expect. When people think about this water, they assume it must be tiny amounts of water, like trapped in the rock, like chemical water. But the fact is, it's very much bubbling right up out at you. Call it an artesian well. And these things are flowing at rates of liters per minute. The volume of water is much larger than anyone anticipated. Groundwater usually flows extremely slowly compared to surface water, as slowly as 1 meter per year. But when tapped with boreholes deep in the mine, it can flow at about 2 liters per minute. By analyzing gases dissolved in this ancient groundwater, including helium, neon, argon, and xenon, these are all noble gases, very stable. The researchers were able to date it back to at least 2 billion years, making it the oldest known water on Earth. The findings were presented in December of 2016 at the American Geophysical Union fall meeting in San Francisco. In previous research that the team published in October, analysis of the sulfate content of the water found at 2.4 kilometers down showed something interesting, that the sulfate was produced in situ, in a chemical reaction between the water and the rock, and not the result of sulfate being carried underground by surface water. Now, this means that the geochemical conditions in these ancient pools of water are cut off from the surface, and it could be sufficient in themselves to sustain microbial life, an independent underground ecosystem that could last for potentially billions of years. Thank you, old dog. Very generous contribution for the cause against the globalist pickpokers. I like that. Yes, so as I said, all the donations that come in tonight I'm going to find a way, and I will get them to Zach Payne, because Patreon cut him off, and that's a violation against a friend of mine. So I'm going to do what I can to fix that, at least today. And I just think it sets up good karma. So if you want a piece of that, you contribute away. I'll give every penny. I don't need it. And we'll find a way to get it to him. All right. In previous studies, we really never thought that, first of all, water existed that deep. Now, of course, we're doing the North Pole Inner Earth expedition, and we are going off of Dr. Weissession's work that shows that there is an ocean underneath the Atlantic Ocean that is the size of the Arctic Sea. This is a big body of water, and what they picked up actually was the damping of the waves crashing against an inner shore, and that's remarkable. And the information was recovered because they examined 600,000 seismograms. And when they did this, that's when it revealed that this ancient body of water was there. I'll put this up there so you can have that link. If you want to learn more about the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition, that's what NPIEE stands for, you can go to that website, nippy.com, and read all about it. You read about the ship, you can read about the mission, the team, the timetable, everything about it, and you can even get a copy of the business plan if you want. But we're not strangers to the idea that a deep under the crust body of water exists. And we are even open-minded to the idea that if this water exists in liquid form, which it does, that's correct, Brad M., inner Earth, then their temperature is right, enough energy is there that it will support life. And now we have this study released by Sherwood Lawler that there's life that could be supported by this in situ sulfate in the groundwater. The wow factor is very high on this one. It's one of the researchers from Long Island from the University of Alberta said this: if geological processes can naturally supply a steady energy source in these rocks, the modern terrestrial subsurface biosphere may expand significantly both in breadth and depth. Close quote. Not only does that mean Earth's potential habitable areas could be a whole lot bigger, given comparable billion-year-old rocks made up about half of Earth's continental crust, it could also mean that the planetary habitability on the other worlds might be wider than we thought, like Mars, like Enceladus, like Titan, these underground situations where liquid water, maybe not the kind of water that we're used to seeing on this planet, is capable of supporting life. And we're discovering it right here on this Earth. That's why this mission is so important. Because we're going to an area of the Earth that's never been seen before. It's never been explored before. No one's ever taken samples off the bottom before. We're taking 100 of the top scientists around the world, grad students, their equipment, their ideas, their methodologies, and we're going to be collecting data directly from an area that's never been seen before. I have always thought that we're fearless. We are not afraid to go and see. Forget about all the creepy, weird stories that people tell you about how we're crazy because we think the Earth is hollow. Look, it's nothing like flat Earth, okay? The science is really backing this up. And every single month, it seems, another piece of data comes along that supports the idea that life is possible inside planet Earth. If this can work on ancient rocks on Earth, then similar processes could make the Martian subsurface habitable. In fact, I would say Earth is a very rare planet in the sense that we can actually survive with no shelter on the surface. We can walk the forests. We can walk the deserts. We can sail the seas. You can't do that on other worlds. Other worlds, the best way to live on those planets, because they don't have atmospheres, they don't have magnetospheres to protect themselves from solar radiation, is on the inside. But I could tell you, if I was anywhere in this solar system for any length of time, I don't care if it's a moon of Saturn or Jupiter or Mars or another planet, I would be aspiring to come to the little blue world in the third orbit. I'm just saying, Earth is a great planet, and good planets are hard to come by. Now, we haven't found any actually living microbes, they say, in the ancient underground water yet, but it doesn't mean that they can't exist. On Earth, or anywhere else for that matter, with the more ancient pools that we find, the closer we could get. Doesn't mean that they're all sterile. We still need to determine what the distribution of ancient waters are on Earth. We just happen to luck out on this one because we have a deep metal mine a couple of miles deep, and we're able to take advantage of that mine being there so that the scientists don't have to drill from the surface. They could go down in the mine and drill from there, and that's exactly what they did. So it's a great idea. It cuts out a lot of money and takes advantage of position. And how any life we might find in these isolated waters is the same or different than other microbial life found, for instance, in the hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor. The only thing that, everyone should be worried about is what happens if microbial life is discovered. It is sampled and taken to a lab somewhere on the surface, and it gets out. And here we have a microbe that's billions of years old, for which maybe no form of life on Earth has a natural defense to it. See, we are, hundreds of thousands of generations old, and our immune systems and our DNA is basically a train wreck of various viruses that we've been exposed to over our existence. Those pieces and fragments of those viruses and the DNA that makes those viruses is scattered throughout our DNA. Now, it's a lot of junk DNA, yes, but there's a lot of reverse transcription errors that go on there, and a lot of things get hidden and unexpressed. But some of these microbes impacted life severely and caused tremendous loss of life or mutations. But the point is that humanity survived. Why? Because we are the cure. We always have been the cure. The only time we have a hard time, the only time we have difficulties, is when somebody with the skills goes in and manufactures a virus that nature would not have created. Normally, people can catch the flu from a bird or from a bat or from a pig, but that flu isn't normally transmissible from the person to another person. It has to be altered. It has to be changed in order to make it transmissible. This is one of the things about this horseshoe bat. Is people that were exploring this cave were contracting the disease and getting sick. And so they studied the disease, they isolated the disease, and then, of course, the fascists with dark money contributed by the Obama administration, they took it to a secret lab in China, and they applied what's called gain of function to it. So this is where not only can people catch the disease from the horseshoe bat, but now they can transmit it from one person to another. And then as soon as that function was proven, whether it was accidental or whether it was on purpose, it's what happens next. What happened next is what matters. And what happened next is that the CCP locked down Hubei province, and specifically Wuhan, which I've been to Wuhan several times. It's a booming place. You can get almost anything you want made there, tools and any kind of technology you want. It's a fantastic place to build things. Unfortunately, it's the location of this lab. Now, it happened to occur during the Chinese New Year. So while all these workers were home for Chinese New Year from all over the world where they work, they come home, they visit family, they celebrate, they take a month off, and they get sick. And then, instead of locking down that province and locking down that city, they put those people right back on airplanes and shipped them right back to where they were working, to Italy, to Seattle, to San Francisco, to New York. And what did those people do? Well, they went to the restaurants, they went to the laundries, they went to the nursing homes, they went to the factories where they worked, and they spread the disease. And then they tried to keep it quiet for weeks and weeks. And finally, right before the end of January, President Trump said, that's it. They're sending these people out as a bioweapon. We are locking it down. Did it save lives? Hard to say, because you can't run an A-B comparison. What we do know, because we have the evidence now, that certain genetic profiles fared better than other genetic profiles against this virus, and that certain age groups fared well against the virus. What we do know is the actual mortality rate for people that did not have comorbidities such as age or lung disease or heart disease or diabetes or other comorbidities, things that they died from anyway. People that actually died from COVID. COVID was the actual cause of death. It's less than 25,000 people. This is not the result that they were looking for. No, they were looking for something much more devastating. If you listen to the public statements that their military generals made some years before, what they were doing, why they were doing it, what they planned on doing with it, they expected to kill 300 million Americans. And they didn't care if it took 300 million Chinese to accomplish it. And they made the public statement saying that we want to depopulate the United States and repopulate it with Chinese. We can always make more Chinese, but we can't make more Communist Chinese Party. That's a direct quote. So why would you be surprised when a military arm of the global syndicate, which right now is the CCP, it used to be the British Empire, it may still be the British Empire for what we know, but why would you fault a military leader for following through with exactly what they said they were going to do? You wouldn't. In fact, it is an act of war, and President Donald Trump is absolutely correct that it is an act that demands a military response and a financial response, which means we're not going to pay you back. And we're going to get with all the countries of the world, and we're going to saddle you with reparations, about $10 trillion worth. We're going to put 100% tariff on your exports. And by the way, I would go into more steps, say, if your ships and planes and submarines are outside your national waters, we're going to sink them. We're going to sink them. We're going to shoot your planes out of the sky. And we'll go one step further, because it really needs to be done. The estimated 52,000 Communist Chinese Party soldiers that are now serving inside our country in universities and hospitals and in agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations and corporations, stealing our technical information and subverting our national effort in every way possible. Those soldiers are going to be captured as prisoners of war, and they'll be tried for their crimes, and then they will be exported if it is suitable to export them or deport them. So this is what happens in war, and to say that it is not an act of war is foolish. To not take action based on an act of war is foolish. Don't let this go. Now, I remembered Ronald Reagan saying one time that if a nation attacked us with a bioweapon, he would respond with nuclear weapons. That's not going to happen today. It doesn't need to happen today. We could take the right action, but it takes leadership. It takes leadership. What is that, Blue Otter? I seem to think we are currently at war with China. Bioweapons, no bueno. Actually, I don't think we're at war with China. We are at war with the global syndicate. Make no mistake about this. We are not at war with the Chinese people. We're not at war with the country of China. We're at war with the global syndicate. And the global syndicate has a military arm, which is the Communist Chinese Party. That is not China. That is not China. In fact, the CCP has another enemy, and it's the Chinese. So trust me when I say this. Yes, absolutely, Steve Y62. It takes President Donald Trump. No other. No other. Maybe Rick DeSantis. But, you have to have a big vision. You have to be able to see the future. And I brought this up with Alex Marlowe. We were discussing this one day on Breitbart Radio. And I brought this up with him, and I said exactly the same thing, that this is an act of war that demands a military response. And he said, well, Brooks, what are we going to do? Go over to China and put American boots on the ground? I said, no, Alex, we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. We have 52,000 approximately of their troops right here in our country. We can start right there. We could start in Iowa. We could start in Virginia. We could start in California. We could start in Chicago. And we can take out these troops non-violently, arrest them all, put them at Gitmo or wherever we got facilities we could put 52,000 people in, and then refuse to pay any debts to them and charge them reparations. This is how it's done. Now, then if they want to respond with iron, we meet it with iron. But this is the way that this war can be won. The only way we can lose it is to not fight it. I don't know that he agreed with me, but it's been several months since we began this conversation, and he's beginning to get it. More and more guests are coming on, more and more experts come on the program, and they back up what I said. And if I could get my message to President Donald Trump, I would. I spoke to General Flynn. I spoke to Sidney Powell. I spoke to others this last weekend, obviously not in front of people, because that's not the purpose of it is not to gain a public venue for it, but to sow the seeds and to think, to begin the thought process, because these things have to be well thought out. All right, let's change screens here a little bit. I want to talk about UFO unclosure. I know a lot of people call it disclosure, but I think maybe you're going to be disappointed here. Admittedly, this column is a departure from the usual fare. People want to see full disclosure of UFOs, but I mean, what are you going to do? They're going to leak out a little bit here and there, and you know what I want, and I know what you want, right? Throw open the damn doors. Open the warehouses. Roll those ships out. Have an air show. Let's see what you got. Everything. Don't hold anything back. Okay? You could tell people, okay, no pictures. Okay, no walking inside, no past the velvet rope. Same thing we did with the stealth fighter and the stealth bomber. I saw those at air shows. Hey, they're top secret. I've been in a Lancer before. You think I took any pictures? No. Roll the technology out and shut up. But, after all, sometime this month, the Pentagon is expected to deliver to Congress a report, another freaking report, on what is now called UAPs. They're not UFOs anymore, unexplained aerial phenomenon. UAPs are the same thing as UFOs. We in the civilian world have been off and on obsessed with since the 1950s. And back then, our government was engaged in a campaign to discredit any and all reports of such phenomenon, conspiracy theories, and throw a veil over those reports. And that veil really hasn't been lifted. The report due out this month, it is hoped, not by me, because I know better, will begin that process and perhaps get us closer to the bottom of what's really happening in our skies. Can I see a show of hands of anybody out there who believes this for 1 second? No, I didn't think so. Listen, get me Dan Willis. Get me Dan Willis. He and I will go there to the Pentagon, and we'll go down every hall, up every staircase, and I'll bet you we don't find it. Because it ain't there. It ain't in the Pentagon. No, we need to go to Edwards Air Force Base. We need to go to Wright-Patterson. We need to go to Area 51. Give us the keys and shut the hell up. Pop culture has already prejudged the outcome. How dare you call me pop culture? According to Hollyweird and other parts of the world, they're aliens. Right. Little gray men with big black eyes flying around in starships and making contact with us to instruct us how to mend our polluting ways or some bullshit like that. This interpretation, fed through the decades of suggestions and propaganda movies and propaganda TV shows and propaganda novels, believe me, hey, all you really have to do is follow the money. You know where the money comes from for those movies? Close Encounters of the Third Kind, all these movies. You know where the money comes from? It comes from the CIA. It comes from DARPA. You think these people get these movies funded because they have movie stars in them? Seriously? Do you think for 1 second that there are people out there that invest in movies, in sci-fi movies? No. I mean, yeah, Star Wars made money, Star Trek made money, but that came off a TV series, which, by the way, Gene Roddenberry probably had CIA funding to begin the TV series. And you remember, it only ran one season, and then it was done. It was public outcry that demanded it come back. It wasn't going to continue on. I'm just telling you, that's where the money comes from. And if you read the Birth Trilogy, and if you haven't, you need to get it done. Because the Birth Trilogy covers one of the great stories of our time. And the prequel to it is Charm of Favor. Now, in Charm of Favor, you begin to see the corruption of the Clinton crime syndicate as it came to power. It was a long time coming, and it was skullduggery and murder and subterfuge like you cannot believe. But it wouldn't be possible without money. And so what happens is that State Department officials like Hillary Rodham Clinton would donate money through DARPA and through the CIA to Hollywood. And it would go to Hollywood to write and make movies. And then the Clintons would go to Hollywood to have a party, to have a fundraiser, right? Hey, we're going to go raise money. We're going to go see Harvey Weinstein. We're going to go party at his house. Yeah, this is going to be fun. And so they go there, and guess what old Harvey does? Yep, Harvey writes a check. He writes a check to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Wow, we just think the world of you, and we want you to be president. Please accept this donation. The only trouble is that it's our money. It's taxpayer money that was given to Harvey in the first place. That's called money laundering. That's how it's done. You see, the taxpayer money is given to them from the State Department. Here, go make this movie. And then the slush fund is created. And then when the Clintons go to Hollywood, they write the checks right back to the Clintons. It's not their money. It's not their wealth. They don't get diddly squat for it. It's taxpayer money that gets laundered right back. They do the same thing with Planned Parenthood. They send Planned Parenthood $500 million a year, and Planned Parenthood turns around and writes a check for $56 million a year to the Democrat Party. That's money laundering. That's how it works. That's why they never stop funding Planned Parenthood, because it's a huge source of income for their political machine. What is that? Space Lincoln Landreau says, I call them flying space commies. Yeah, it could be. I know what they're not. I don't know what they are. But I will tell you this. I think they're as present as they want to be. Let me continue with the article. You see, it isn't to say that unidentified flying objects don't exist. They do. Everybody can see them. I've taken pictures of them. You've taken pictures of them. Oh, they're all blurry. And I don't think you'll be at all surprised to see that when they open these files, these wonderful secret files of these vehicles, guess what you're going to see? More of the same, more blurry pictures, more personal testimonies, more fuzzy lights in the sky, more dark shadows floating over the desert floor, more tic tacs escaping from jets. You're not going to have diddly squat any more than we have right now. Now, in rare cases, these ships, these shapes, these objects that fly in space, they are truly unexplained. And there wouldn't be anything for the Pentagon to put in that report if they didn't, right? I mean, we've all seen the blurry pictures. We've all seen the movies that, despite the best smart cameras in the world with megapixels of resolution, are all a bunch of crap, right? We've seen the footage released by the Navy of objects captured on cockpit cameras from fighter jets. Really? They have the shittiest cameras in those jets I could ever imagine. You should be able to count the rivets on a jet with those cameras. Who puts those junky-ass cameras in those jets anyway? Come on, guys. Or from shipboard infrared cameras, which has covered the news broadcast in the last few months, maybe a couple years. Those images are the things that don't conform to any of the laws of physics as we currently know them, right? Left-hand turns at 10,000 miles an hour. And I've talked to Dr. Stephen Greer about this face-to-face many times about this. He says they're ours. Really. So we make a left-hand turn at 10,000 miles an hour. I know if I make a left-hand turn at 50 miles an hour, I'm smashed up against the right-hand glass. I could have special seat belts. I have friends that make left-hand turns at 200 miles an hour every single Sunday. And they have special seats and everything. And it's hard to do. It wears them out. You don't see a lot of old race car drivers. And that's 200 miles an hour. That's it. That's the end of human endurance. The Pentagon says that those things aren't ours. And it's hard to believe they're Russian. After all, the Russians have very similar reports of the unexplained phenomenon, very similar to ours. I have friends that live in Kazakhstan. They're all the same. All the reports are the same. And China is enough of a latecomer on the military and technological scene, it makes it difficult to believe that they're the ones responsible. Trust me, if those things were made by China, the first time they made a turn, that thing would fall apart like a daisy smack with a 9-iron. Nothing the Chinese make is durable. Nothing. So, aliens, right? Aliens, people from other worlds. So, I'm not buying it because I'm a physicist and I know the distances are just not achievable. Okay, let's go with that. Yeah, China landed on Mars. Whatever. After everybody else did it. Where do you think they got all that technology? They stole it from me. They stole it from us. They didn't develop that stuff themselves. We just had a big piece of their rocketry smash into the Indian Ocean, right? And it's not the last. Trust me, everything they put up is going to come down. It's gonna. Their Jade Rabbit on the moon, already dead. Already dead. Out of juice. Just telling you. Just telling you. So, I get it. In order to do any of this, left-hand turns, other worlds, etc., which means, and so on and so forth, you're going to have to create a different space-time continuum. And that's a lot of word salad. In order to do that, you have to realize that at extreme speeds, time dilates. And at extreme gravity, time dilates. You remember the movie Interstellar? You remember that movie? You remember when Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway, they went down on that world, right? And they fought with Matt Damon. I mean, they were down there for 2 hours. I mean, in the movie, it wasn't 2 hours, but their alleged time was 2 hours. So then they get back in the ship and they fly back up to the orbiter, which is where their traveling companion is still alive. And he's about insane because while they were down on the planet on the other side of this neutron star, obviously a heavy gravity environment, which dilated time, it was 25 years. 25 years he was in that ship. He did 2 10-year stints in suspended animation. 2 10-year stints. And he was bombing around the spacecraft trying to stay sane for 5 years. He thought he was stranded in space. They were gone for 2 hours. You see, now think about it, because you're thinking, well, that's how they do it then. That's how they make these left-hand turns. You know, it's just a leisurely 20-mile-an-hour turn for them. But you have to understand that the Tic Tac, for instance, off the coast of California, was fully aware of that F-18 Super Hornet, right? I mean, it went from, 81,000 feet down to sea level in a matter of 3 seconds. That got the attention. Oh, yeah, and no sonic boom. But you see, we're talking about relative time-space. Relative time-space between the Tic Tac and the jet. They're both aware of one another, right? They're not in separate universes. They're not in separate dimensions. Something the ship could do that the F-18 Super Hornet could not do is dilate time so that the ship could appear relative to the jet that it was going very, very fast. Now, if you think about this, then what's happening for the Tic Tac itself, for the alien ship, time is slowing down for them, right? It takes more time for them to actually make the turn relative to the jet. So the jet pilot is, for all intents and purposes, aging faster, right, than the person in the Tic Tac, right? They're both in the same space, but one is experiencing time in a different way than the other one is. The jet's experiencing time very fast relative to the Tic Tac, but they're both in the same space and they're behaving according to their own time base. Now, if that's true, then you say, okay, then it's possible that this Tic Tac could travel from, let's say, Proxima Centauri. That's really the closest planet, and we'll just assume that if we're talking about aliens, we're talking about Proxima Centauri. Well, you remember what I just said now, that time slowed down for the ship. They aged slower. So what would normally be about 5.8 light years at light speed, that's still a long time in a Tic Tac, you know. You can't store enough food. You can't stay sane for 5 years. It's just, and you don't even know Earth exists. I mean, you don't even know it exists. You don't even know where it's located. You know how hard it was to hit the moon? The moon's 2 days from here. And we launched several probes and missed it. It's like right there, right? If you just like look right there, it's right there. And yet Werner von Braun missed it several times with the probe. There it is. They fired a rocket at it and missed it by something like 30,000 miles. They're going, how can that be? I mean, we know how fast the moon's going. We know how fast the Earth is going. It's like leading a ship, with a torpedo. But they missed it. You know how they finally hit it? Because they launched a probe and the gyroscope malfunctioned. The gyroscope malfunctioned. The high-speed spinning wheel inside that keeps it stable. The pitch, the yaw, the roll, all that, right? It failed. Well, when the gyroscope failed, this huge weight spinning at 40,000 RPM inside this probe, when it failed, the probe hit the moon. And they were able to figure out what the problem was, where they were making the mistake. Somewhere in their calculations, they failed to take into consideration the effects of the travel of the probe through space with a spinning gyroscope inside of it. And they missed the moon. So was the gyroscope curving space because it was creating a stable straight line in curved space-time? That's what I'm saying. I don't know how the Tic Tac in the same space as the jet could behave differently. Lots of people are trying to figure it out. That's what I'm saying. Pentagon is going to open its doors, open its files later on this month. I think it's a bunch of crap because they don't know. They don't know. If they did, that F-18 Super Hornet would have been able to catch that Tic Tac in its sleep. So, other than the influence of pop culture and the captivating imaginary tales our storytellers have spun for us, I tell stories too in print. Would you jump to such a conclusion? Well, many people do. They just believe. They're believers, but I'm not. I'm a scientist. I don't believe in nothing except God. I'm not going to do it. I need data. I need data. I need facts. By the way, Freedom, that is super generous. Hippo character sitting into an office chair when they both transform into a mecha chair. What is it? Mecha? Mecha, like mechanical chair. Hippo hero. Thank you so much. I don't know if you came late. Maybe you did, Freedom, but here's the deal. The Global Syndicate has gone after a friend of mine, Zach Payne, Red Pill 78, and tanked his Patreon. Took his money, stopped his friends from supporting him. Stopped his friends. It's one thing if he's selling something, but these are his friends. These are his supporters, his followers. Nope, they didn't like the way he talked about COVID, and so that's it for him. So all the money that we collect tonight, I will total it up, and I'll make sure Zach gets it. It's just what we do. We're going to help one another. We will survive this. We're going to beat the Global Syndicate no matter what, because we are greater than they are. All right, let's remember the logistical and practical problems inherent in the visitation by extraterrestrial intelligence argument. Okay, I've made one of them, but we've been broadcasting radio transmissions into space for a long time, since probably the early 1900s. And in fact, I think the late 1800s, we have been broadcasting into space. So we've always had hopes that there is intelligent life out there and somebody would respond, but nobody has. You can think about it. The radio waves are going at the speed of light. It would have taken 5 years to get there, 5 years to get back, if there's intelligent life there. If intelligent life is 500 light years away, which is still not that far in space, the radio signals won't get there till the United States has passed away. In 2015, researchers at the University of New South Wales identified Wolf 1061c. Now, it's a planet, and it orbits a red dwarf star, and it is believed to be capable of sustaining life. It's only 16 light years away, but there's no life on that planet that we can see. Everything else we'd considered a candidate as a host planet for intelligent life would be hundreds or even thousands of light years away, which means they're not going to get the message from Tesla or the early radio transmissions prior to World War I for a long time, if they're even strong enough to be picked up by then. And there's a massive problem with this theoretical ability we're assured by pop culture will eventually exist wherein travel at the speed of light is possible. It ain't. First of all, traveling that fast is almost assuredly going to be bombard a spacecraft with levels of radiation so intense as to cook anyone inside it in minutes. Second, any such spacecraft can't have hydrogen aboard because it would essentially turn it into a nuclear bomb, right? Because the protons would be so large, they would be 20 electron volts compared to 1 electron volt here on Earth. And anything close to light speed, it's going to be that big, and you're going to have a fusion bomb, okay? You can't travel in a straight line from here to there, okay? There are going to be lots of things in the way. There are going to be rocks. There's going to be gas particles. There's going to be gravel along that road. And you can't just go zooming through at the speed of light. I mean, any Star Wars fan knows this, right? You have to do calculations. You don't want to end up in the middle of an asteroid. And the closer you get to the speed of light, the more difficult it would be not to run into these. Because if you have radar, you're going to send that out at the speed of light. It's going to come back at the speed of light. But if you're traveling at the speed of light, guess what? Your radar is never going to go anywhere. You're going to be sailing right alongside of it, right? And by the way, radar probably wouldn't even work too well in providing a collision warning if you're traveling at the speed of light. It's just because you're already in a radar speed ship going in the direction that you're trying to see. See, speed of light really is a limit. Now, we're conditioned to think somebody would just invent their way past these problems, but you see, that's where Hollyweird steps in and not science. I'm not a believer. I told you, I got to have the sauce, okay? Now, an alien civilization millions of years ahead of us in technology might very well have licked those problems. And if that's true, why the hell haven't they bothered to respond to our radio signals? And if they're showing up in our atmosphere, why not make themselves known, right? What are these guys? The strong, silent types? I've told you, they're as present as they want to be. And if they wanted to be more present, there's not a damn thing anybody could do about it. So be grateful that they're flying around up there. You can go out and you can hold your little signs up and have your little circles in the desert and meditate and all that if you want to. I'm glad they're there, and I'm here. And I don't think that they're sharing technology with any government. Why would they? You could share with me. You could share with me. I'm not dangerous. Well, actually, I am very dangerous, but not to you. Why would they share with governments? You see, that's why the Pentagon doesn't know anything. They don't know anything. If they do, open the damn doors and let us see for ourselves. Quick break. We'll be right back in about 3 minutes. By the way, thank you, Baba Susie, for that very generous contribution. That goes to the cause.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Be evasive. But that doesn't mean that they're telling the truth as opposed to fiction.
And Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, and there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, indicating that there were giants before the Nephilim.
And sons of God, plural. They weren't talking about Jesus coming down.
No, that's right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm Steve Crawford, host of Factor Theory Live. Join me every Sunday night from 10 p.m. till midnight Eastern Standard Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Check it out.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
If you think for 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. Because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Good evening.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried and we've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. The time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right. Thanks so much for being patient there. I have to let Revolution Radio have a moment for its station identification. As you know, Revolution Radio is the #1 listener-supported network in the country, maybe even in the world. And the way it works is this. You go to freedomslips.com, And in going to freedomslips.com, you're going to find a donate page and a donate link. And when you make out a donation to them, make it a regular donation. I don't care if it's $3 or $5. And here's my logic behind that. NPR takes a little bit of your paycheck every single time you are paid. Yes, they do. They take tax money out of your paycheck and they finance their beautiful building. If you've ever seen their building, it's uptown, let me tell you. But they also finance a never-ending stream of propaganda, and you don't have any control over that. But you do have control over the donations. So what I would ask is that right now we have about 15,000 hours a month that gets listened to on America Free Radio. I would say that if you go to freedomslips.com and you make a regular donation, $2, $3, if you can imagine if 100,000 of you sent $2 a month to Revolution Radio, we could change the world. We could save the world. Now, if you are aware of what TalkStream Live is, now a lot of us are podcasters, and we started out on radio years ago. I've been here 17 years, so this video that we're doing, we're streaming out through 6 or 7 different platforms. This is relatively new. When this first started, everybody, Blaze, Fox, Sirius XM, it's all radio, it's all audio. There's no cameras sharing that information with you. Blaze TV does, but they're a big outfit. Revolution Radio is the number 10 network on TalkStream Live, and it's huge comparing the NBC and CNN and all the others that go out through TalkStream Live. That's a serious showing. But we could change the world. We could save the world if you guys went to freedomslips.com and made a regular donation. You are not going to miss it. And, take it from somebody who died in 2012, hit by a car on my motorcycle, done, came back. Then in 2014, had cancer, beat that. So I'm on borrowed time. I don't even buy green bananas. I don't save for rainy days a couple years from now. I save for stuff 6 weeks from now, maybe. But I make enough money that I can live the lifestyle I want to live. And I would feel so bad if I wasted 1 minute of mortality worrying about saving money. I pay off my debts and I help my friends and help those in need. So I'm just saying, don't plan so far for tomorrow. Let's try to save the world we have. What do you say? $2-3 a month is all it takes. So enough of a sales job. I want to talk a little bit more about this because I'm fascinated by it. You obviously are. And it's timely. Because in 1917, this is where the past meets the future on this program, and I often go into the past and bring data up here to the present, and then we hash it out, and we discover that we have something very in common with the future. In 1917, there was what's commonly understood as a miracle near the Portuguese town of Fatima. You remember this? You've seen the film, right? At least Our Lady of Fatima, right? Now, there was a vision of the Virgin Mary that appeared to these 3 young children over the space of several months, offering them spiritual messages and cautioning against the rise of the Soviet Union and communism. Oh, that we would have listened to that. The latter somehow never made it into the portrayal of the events in Fatima in a recent movie on the subject, but that nevertheless doesn't change the truth. The Virgin also imparted a warning to one of the children, who later became a nun, that a pope would be shot. Now, I bring up Fatima because the final visitation of the children was accompanied by a brilliant and terrifying show of lights from the sky, right? And this is from a column years ago, but I'm going to share this with you. Amidst all the enthusiasm and mass hysteria, the ecstatic stories of the sun breaking through the clouds and dancing across the sky, there were some surprisingly sober accounts, mostly by reporters, from anti-clerical newspapers and skeptical academics who had come to watch the crowd. The sun's disk did not remain immobile. This was not the sparkling of a heavenly body, for it spun around on itself in a mad whirl, wrote a professor from the University of Coimbra. Then suddenly one heard a clamor, a cry of anguish breaking from all the people. The sun, whirling wildly, seemed to loosen itself from the firmament and advance threateningly upon the earth as if to crush us with its huge and fiery weight. The sensation during those moments was terrible, close quote. Now, does anyone have much doubt that they were the events in Fatima to have taken place in 2017 rather than 1917? The common explanation would have been aliens, right, rather than the Virgin Mary. I'm sure of it. Consider Medjugorje as well. In that then Yugoslav town of 1981, 6 children were similarly visited by a vision of the Virgin Mary, who imparted the 5 religious messages: peace, faith, prayer, conversion, and fasting to them over the course of many contacts. Since then, pilgrims have flocked to Medjugorje, and a very common report from them, complete with many photos, is the presence of, you guessed it, strange lights in the sky. Christian doctrine isn't overly friendly to the idea of extraterrestrial life, and Christian researchers who have dived into the UFO pool, particularly with respect to the phenomenon of like alien abductions, which is the central tenet of the extraterrestrial intelligence theory, have largely focused on demonic possession as the explanation for those. And I have friends, L.A. Marzulli and several others that I know, who swear by this, that aliens and alien technology that is being shown to us right now is demonic. It has nothing to do with angels. It has nothing to do with good guys. Now, of course, if you talk to Dr. Stephen Greer, they are the good guys, and they're here to, send the bad ETs away. Now, since we're out on a limb in discussing these subjects already, as far as I'm concerned, it's hardly implausible, relatively speaking. There's a strong similarity between reports of those abductions and reports of demonic possession, right? After all, they're pretty much the same. And if you think demonic possession is hokum, then why does the Catholic Church still employ exorcists? Oh yeah, and they've been busy, over busy. The point here is to recognize the persuasive quality of pop culture, which has created the common public perception of extraterrestrial visitation, to explain the unexplained, and has generally achieved buy-in from you, from the public, based on nothing, absolutely nothing. No bones, no ships, no technology on display, no live demonstrations of anti-gravity technology on stage. Nothing. Nothing. And we've all but given up on the idea that religion has much of anything to say about our lives, really. Perhaps what's really behind all this is far more spiritual than scientific after all. The last several years, in which the scientific community has brought us global warming hysteria, gain-of-function virology, blah, 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 experiments leading to millions of deaths, should have taught us not to put all our eggs in their basket. So I'm just saying, yeah, I'm a skeptic. Sure, I am. Absolutely. And I have an open invitation. Any public venue that I speak at, ever, from now until I can no longer make a coherent sound, I have an open invitation for any aliens on this planet. Come with me. Come with me. Step out on stage with me. Everyone in the world will know that it's true because I'm not a believer. If you're a real alien, I don't care if you're an insectoid, praying mantis. I don't care if you're a little blue glob. I don't care if you're a gray with big slanted black eyes and can't even speak English. Step out on the stage with me. I promise you, safe passage on that stage and off that stage and wherever you're going to go. My goal is first contact. I want to prove to the world that you exist. No government involved, no movie studios involved, no money involved. I don't want a living from this. I don't make a living from this. This is a hobby. I love doing it because I love speaking to you, and I love the feedback that I get from you. I make good money. I have a good living. I don't need to make money from this. And I wouldn't make money from that. And I'm not doing this for self-aggrandizement, damn it. I'm trying to solve a problem. All right, let's talk a little bit about Apollo fusion. You know, I'm excited about the things we're doing in space. Of course, I wrote a book called Asteroid Mining: The Future of Energy. And this is my first color book because I tried to do it in black and white and get it out on a budget. And the issue was that none of the imagery looked good. So we decided to do it in color, and it raised the price quite a bit. This is about a $30 book, but it's easily read. It covers the latest and even some technology that's not quite built yet. That's how modern this book is. It has 3 chapters on the Space Force. So you could see that the tremendous amount of thought and money and planning went into the Space Force. Of course, I'm heartbroken that Garrison's Gestapo is already starting to gut it of patriots, but that's why it was put together in the first place, was to give patriots a way of bringing integrity to what we're doing in space. But that being said, a lot of the private industry that's being involved in space is going through a lot of acquisitions, a lot of buyouts, a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of recovery from bankruptcies. And the launch vehicle developer known as Astra, it's one of those names that is still working, and they're still very, very financially capable. We, talk about SpaceX all the time. We talk about Blue Horizon all the time. But there are other private industries who realize the gold rush that's going on. And there's great technology coming from several different levels, not just launch engines, but also retro rocketry and rovers and sample recovery systems and fuel management systems, because obviously we're going to have to refuel in space. We're going to have to make fuel in space because we're not going to haul fuel to space. Astra is acquiring a company called Apollo Fusion, which is a company developing electric propulsion systems for spacecraft as part of its effort to create vertically integrated space systems. Now, obviously, these electric propulsion systems don't work on Earth. They don't generate enough thrust to push the hat off your head. But in space, where all you have to do is overcome inertia, and, force is equal to mass times acceleration, right? F is equal to ma. So if you can accelerate your mass to very high speeds, like close to the speed of light, the equation allows you to generate force with very little mass. So this electric propulsion, no, unfortunately, we're not talking about the clean microwave drive that you just like put a microwave up there and open it up and turn it on with solar panels and off you go. No, that doesn't work. You do have to have something to push out the back. So they use xenon or neon or, one of the noble gases that they can charge and blast out the back. I think that Elon Musk has a brilliant idea in using methane as a fuel. It has a fair amount of energy, yes, and the Raptor engine is a work of art and science. But the other thing is that you can get methane in space. You can get methane in space. There are asteroids that are made of huge, gigantic chunks of frozen methane, right? And if there's water and carbon on the moon, guess what you have? Methane. You can make fuel. You can make fuel and refuel on another planet. You don't have to haul fuel. It's a brilliant idea. So these electric propulsions are basically like vacuum tubes. Remember the old tube technology we had in our TVs? You may not remember, but that's the way it was before transistors. What they would do is they would make an electron cloud by making tungsten red hot, and you'd end up with this cloud of electrons just kind of floating above the wire. And then you would put charged grids above that, like waffle grids, and those would attract the electrons and accelerate them at high speed, and you could create high voltage. Well, that's basically what electric propulsion is, except instead of creating the voltage inside a vacuum tube, you're shoving it out a nozzle going out the back. That's a very simple explanation, but that's what it is. Now, the truth is that when you run out of gas, you're out of gas, baby. That's it. Of course, these gases are very small and they can be compressed very densely, and you can have a great supply on it that can last a year or 2 or 3, and you can get all the way to the asteroid belt and back. We just launched a electric propulsion sample craft that went to an asteroid, landed on the asteroid, gathered up some gravel off the asteroid, actually filled its little trash compactor, and then lifted off that asteroid, and then it fired its electric drive for 7 minutes. Yeah, fired it for 7 minutes. And I'm trying to think now, but I remember the speed being something like 18,000 miles an hour. So it fired for 7 minutes, or maybe it was less than that. Anyway, it wasn't a terrific amount of speed for firing that thing for 7 minutes. The point is, it's going to arrive back here in a couple years, and we're going to get that sample off that asteroid. Brilliant plan using electric propulsion. Well, Apollo Fusion is the company that builds a very reliable electric propulsion system. And they have these in the satellite buses, company that is developing to provide an integrated solution to customers. Astra revealed its satellite plans a couple of months ago when it announced it would merge with a special purpose acquisition company. We call those SPACs. We used to use what are called special purpose vehicles, SPVs, which are a financial instrument that's put together of various pieces of value. It could be cash, it could be stock, it could be bonds, special purpose vehicles. Well, a SPAC is like that, and it's the issue is that the SPACs can be very much like Ponzi schemes. And that is where the first investors that come in are the first investors out. In other words, the first investors that come in at a very cheap price. They buy a tremendous amount of share in that SPAC. And then as the hype is built and more investors come in at a higher price, eventually what happens is the first investors sell out and they make 10, 15, 20 times their money. It isn't exactly legal, but right now it's the only way to fund things in the United States because the SEC makes it impossible for startups to access capital. So the companies said the acquisition will close after Astra completes its merger with Holicity later this year. I told you there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of acquisitions. There's a lot of Chapter 11s and being bought out of Chapter 11. And this is normal. This is what normally happens. Companies develop to a certain point. The investors or the founders run out of money, or they run out of technology, or they run out of age, and they're now 70 and they want to cash out. So they sell the company. And, Twitter buys companies, and Google buys, companies, and Facebook buys Instagram. And you get it, right? It's the same thing. So in an interview, Chris Kemp, chief executive of Astra, said that Apollo Fusion's thrusters fill a technology gap for those future satellites. What this is about is adding a really core piece of technology to Astra's platform. It'll unlock a whole new set of customer opportunities for the company. The next puzzle piece is the vertically integrated spacecraft. So one thruster does not a space program make. You have to have a complete system. You have to have a launch vehicle. You have to have the capability of sustaining a crew. You have to have a mission that could involve collecting old satellites, refueling satellites, establishing a moon base, developing cislunar space. That's what I'm talking about. It's about adding a really core piece of technology to get this vertical integration going. So when we start looking at that, the core technologies that drive that, one of them is this engine that is a key cornerstone of that space platform that they're building. Without it, you're going to have to haul fuel into space, and that's prohibitively expensive. It's like $12,000 a kilogram, and then you're just going to burn it in space. So why not be able to develop it in space, make it in space at a fraction of that cost and an endless supply? So Mike Cassidy, chief executive of Apollo Fusion, said customers of both his company's thrusters and Astra's rockets were looking for an integrated solution. A lot of our customers are asking us for a total solution for getting from the ground to orbit that they want to go. And Chris's customers are asking for the same thing. It's one thing to launch a shipping container full of small satellites up into space. But then those small satellites need to have a lightweight propulsion system with its own long-term fuel supply to move the satellites into position, to create the grid that they're trying to create. And they're constantly making adjustments. These satellites have to adjust to not only maintain the grid, but they also have to be able to move out of the way of space debris and be able to alter the shape of their grid for optimum performance. These kinds of things cannot be calculated in advance. You think they could be, but they can't, because we have a challenge which is called the Lorentzian challenge, and that is that these satellites are going to be orbiting the Earth. They're not geostationary, and the vehicles that are on the ground are also moving. So they're driving or they're relocating, and the satellites are moving too. So there is a Doppler effect that does not allow the satellites to adjust for the movement of the satellite and the vehicle on the ground. GPS wasn't supposed to be possible because it was a Lorentzian impossibility, okay? But what happened was they figured out a way to do it. you could acquire up to 12 satellites from one receiver. And in acquiring multiple satellites instead of just one, you could correct these Lorentzian variations to locate yourself to about a square meter on the ground. Now, it's not perfect. You're not going to get to the millimeter, but you can get to a square meter or a dozen meters, depending on how many satellites you can access. And that is way better below the 60th parallel. Above the 60th parallel, it's much more difficult because the satellites don't typically work or congregate at high latitudes. They go around the Earth and the middle latitudes where people are, because that's the way the system works. So Kemp said that he saw a lot of similarities between the two companies, and that's always good. And these similarities are on several different levels. Number one is the management system. A lot of times they use Microsoft Teams, and they use Scrum. Scrum is a management technique that's normally used for the development of software. It is a system whereby you create a list of backlog items that need to be done, and some of these are kind of long range, 6 months, 8 months, but nobody wants an 8-month assignment, because you know what happens. They don't work on it until the 7th month. Look at Ford. I mean, Ford doesn't get it, but a lot of companies do, and modern companies now use this Scrum technique because they break the backlog into what are called sprints, and these sprints are no more than 2 to 4 weeks. So what they do is they pull items from the backlog, and admittedly some of it's like make work. You can actually make a task into 5 tasks that are easily accomplishable to make yourself look good. But a good manager will be able to see through that and manage that. So these companies that normally use Scrum to develop software, they're now using Scrum to develop hardware, satellites and safety equipment and all kinds of things, and it works very well. Normally, when we're making automotive, we feign meetings, although we have meetings all the time. And the problem is when you have meetings, you're not doing nothing. Too many meetings, no action, right? But with Scrum, these meetings are very short, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that's it. And you don't even have to be on site. You could pull it together, have the meeting in Teams. The manager can adjust the sprint. And then as each of these sprints become successful or accomplished, eventually you get the main backlog complete. So probably both companies are using the same management system, which makes it easy to integrate. The second is that probably what they're using is Linux as the base language, or they're using Python. Python is it's a consolidating language, but it's a programming language, and it's very powerful and very common. And if they're both using the same program platform, then you don't have to double the amount of programmers in order to get the job done, and everybody speaks the same language. Of course, this does create a problem, or not a problem, but a vulnerability, and that is to hacking. Because the language is very common, it's also very common to people that are trying to take advantage of your program system. So although you have stuff like Arduino and Zigbee boards and all those that are like radios and switching software and hardware and firmware, it is difficult to protect all that. And so you don't want to have 2 encryption systems. You want to have one. And if everybody is pre-encrypting, in other words, all the software is written and everything's talking to everything else, then you put the encrypting system in place and you can tie the whole system off. Otherwise, you have to work from scratch, and then you have to worry about people having access and clearances and blah, blah, blah. So this is what makes a company vertically integratable with another company. So Astra's acquisition of Apollo Fusion is the latest in a series of developments for the company. It announced May 18th a contract with Planet to perform multiple launches of Planet's imaging satellites in 2022. That's next year. So Kemp said in the interview that Astra has more than 50 launches under contract. This is good. They'll make about anywhere from $8 to, I would say, $12 million per launch. So that's a pretty good revenue channel. Serving a mix of government and commercial customers. Although Planet is the first customer it's publicly announced, Planet is probably the pioneer in the small satellite space. We couldn't be more proud to have them as the first customer that we could announce. There are others, but they're not going to share it. And it's probably, it's for a variety of reasons, and not the least of which goes back to the SPACs, the special access vehicles, or the special purpose financing vehicles, because a lot of these vehicles are publicly traded. And so if you make a public announcement, that becomes hype for that stock, you see, and the SEC really frowns on that. So you have to be careful, because you can turn into a market maker, and it can push the price of things out of reach. So Astra also disclosed that it has a roadmap to develop larger vehicles with the goal of placing up to 500 kilograms into orbit. That's about 1,100 pounds. The company did not disclose technical details of that roadmap or a schedule for producing those larger vehicles. Kemp said plans for various mega constellations influenced that roadmap. We want to converge with what these mega constellation operators are designing and flying in 2023. And it's about, being the most responsive launch service provider. Can't all be SpaceX. SpaceX is going to have their slate filled up with NASA. And that leaves, and you have to realize that we're talking about a gold rush here. And it's not just low Earth orbit, okay? We're also talking about lunar orbits, because the moon has to have GPS and communication satellites around it as well. Because we're going to develop the moon, we're going to mine the moon, but you don't want to go to the moon and not have any navigation, not have any communications, not have any ability to navigate either the surface or the orbit of the moon. So we have a lot more practice at it now. So we're not going to fill up the moon with a bunch of junk, like Earth is full of a bunch of junk, because people just launch stuff just because they could. Yeah, what is that? Old Dog says, Late Night Live from the Lunar Lava Tube with Brooks Agnew. That's a show I'd watch. Well, you're watching, okay? You're watching. This is real world stuff. So we set up a smarter, more modern grid around the moon. And we've got to have GPS satellites. We've got to have the locator pins on the surface to tie the surface to the satellites. And now you have a way for autonomous travel to and from the moon and Earth, carrying supplies or bringing back products from the moon. It makes it a lot easier. You don't have to fly it to the surface anymore, and you don't have to be lucky or unlucky like the Indians. They splatted their last ship that went to the moon. All right, let's change gears a little bit. Can't talk about space stuff forever. I do want to talk about this story, because I've been warning you about this for a while, maybe over 2 years. And that is about the syndicate. Now, the global syndicate. If you're new to this program and you haven't read my books, you could catch up. It's easy to do. I would highly recommend that you start reading books. And if you're not a great reader, you don't have to worry about this too much, because all these books are in audio as well. And I will give you the audiobook for free if you buy any of the copies of this book in paperback or Kindle, which the links are right there at my website, brooksagnew.com, under the store link. I will give you the audio to it for free. So if you're not a good reader, don't worry about it, because I read it for you, okay? But the reason I want you to read it is because it's going to familiarize you with the global syndicate, which is it's made of 4 divisions. It has a military division, which right now is the CCP, Communist Chinese Party. It has a political division, which I call the Establishment Party, which encompasses all the Democrats and a fair number of Republicans. Okay, it has been around for a long, long time, thousands of years, the Establishment Party. The third is the financial division, and that's primarily made of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. It operates through a meeting system which they call the World Economic Forum, and that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. And the fourth, of course, is the global media empire, which now, of course, all the broadcast media over airwaves or TV or cable is all owned by 6 rich white guys. And then, of course, we have the tech giants. We have Google and we have Twitter and Facebook and Microsoft to a certain extent. But this makes up the global media empire, and they are the ones that are controlling the propaganda systems to you. But now, of course, the G7 ministers just met, and they reached a significant informal agreement about 4 days ago. And I need to share this with you because you may need to take some corrective action. And they want to back a minimum global corporate tax rate of at least 15%. Now, it sounds glorious, but then you have to ask the question, a tax on what? Huh? On what? What does that mean, a corporate tax? I mean, I own several corporations, but they don't make any money. I mean, they're not nonprofits. They just are not in revenue mode. They're not making money. So you're going to tax all my corporations 15% of what? There's no revenue. There are no profits. What if a corporation does have revenue and it doesn't make a profit? It zeroes out. It spends as much money as it makes. Payroll, capital expenditures, building expenses, expansions. It doesn't make any money. It zeroes out. What are you going to charge them 15% of? You see, you don't think about this stuff, but I do. The new global minimum tax would affect multinational companies who have shifted their profits and tax revenues to low-tax tax haven countries like Scotland and Ireland to avoid higher taxes in the country where the majority of their sales are made. That's not really possible. I mean, you can't sell things in the United States and move the profits to Ireland. Okay? You can't do that. Why do you think that Nissan and Toyota and Hyundai and Kia, why do you think they have plants in this country? They have plants in this country because the market's in this country. You understand? And if those companies make a profit, it's Kia of America. It's Nissan of America. It's Toyota Motor Manufacturing of America. You can't just remove the profits to another country. And you recall that President Trump realized there's about $5 trillion sitting out there. Now, they created FATCA. This is a foreign account tax code. And they went to countries like, let's say, Switzerland. And they said to Switzerland, we want to know all the Americans that have accounts in your country. And we want you to report to us in triplicate, in English, all the money that they have in their accounts, when it got there, and how often it flows into those accounts. And of course, Switzerland said, go pound sand. It's against their constitution to do that. So FATCA doesn't really go very far, doesn't have enough teeth. But President Trump decided to offer a one-time discount for those individuals who make money in foreign countries. They make the money in foreign countries. It's profit outside this country. What they want to do is move the profits back into the U.S. economy. Why? Because once you move $5 trillion in liquidity back into our banking system, it makes it available for loans. People can borrow the money. Business can grow. The economy would boom if that happened. Right now, it's sitting in foreign countries doing nothing. It's just sitting there doing nothing. Why? Because they don't want to pay 35% tax on it. Well, now the global syndicate wants to go after that money. So, while not infringing on a nation's sovereign right to determine its tax rates, right, the global minimum deal would allow a company's home government to increase taxes on domestic companies that pay low taxes in another country until they meet the 15% threshold, thus eliminating the advantage of shifting profits. Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals have estimated that such a tax would generate an additional $500 billion in U.S. tax revenue over the next decade, which is absolutely false, because that money is going to be moved away. You're never going to find it. You're never going to be able to tax it. This is not about taxing corporations. You and I both know, and you should know this, corporations never pay taxes. They don't pay taxes. You do. You pay the taxes. The price on the vehicle or the TV or the clothes or the electronics that you buy will go up because the corporation's not going to pay those taxes. The consumer's going to pay the taxes. So it is a global syndicate tax on you, the consumer. U.S. Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen, one of the biggest crooks in the world, claimed the agreement will counteract the global race to the bottom in corporate tax rates and ensure fairness for the middle class and working people in the U.S. and around the world. What a bald-faced lie. What they actually mean is that they're going to ensure that they can drain the middle class of 15% of their buying power by raising the rates on the corporations, and the corporations are not going to pay it. They're not going to pay it. Why would you take a multi-billion-dollar risk to make zero profit? You wouldn't. Just run the money on the stock market. Go to Vegas, play cards, right? Why? You're in business to make money. That's why you're in business. That's why you take the risk. Nobody takes the risk. You do. You take the risk building that business, and you deserve the profits. So here comes the global syndicate. Oh, we know you worked hard. We know you made a profit. Now give it to us. You see, it doesn't make sense. This is the war that we're fighting. This is the war we're fighting. We're fighting it right now. And these guys can get together over some expensive wine and just decide that they're going to take 15% of U.S. corporations' earning power. You see, urging care before embracing such a plan. Of course, Mike Crapo, who's a Republican from Idaho, and U.S. House Ways and Means ranking member Kevin Brady, who's from Texas, they issued a statement on Saturday as the global syndicate came out with this ridiculous larceny, which they call a tax plan. They call the agreement premature. They are concerned that if the U.S. joins such an agreement, it could impose penalties on American businesses without necessarily keeping other nations from exacting digital service taxes and other unilateral measures that harm American interests, which basically is the middle class. They want to wipe out the middle class. We continue to caution against moving forward in any way that could adversely affect U.S. businesses and ultimately harm American workers and jobs at a critical time in our country's economic recovery. Virtual Joe is trying to make a windfall, a $500 billion windfall. And they do it by stealing from the middle class. Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard E. Neal, he's a Democrat from Massachusetts, and Senate Finance Committee Chair Ron Wyden, also a Democrat from Oregon, released a brief response saying the consensus paves the way for formal agreements to be reached among the participants in the inclusive framework negotiations on this matter. And they will look forward to reviewing the details of today's deal and applaud Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals in working to level the international playing field and support American workers. You see how this propaganda works? I'm trying to crack it open for you so you can see the lie laying there right in front of you, like a giant steaming turd. Matt Dickerson, generation of the Grover H. Herman Center for the Financial Budget and Heritage Foundation, which I'm pretty sure is the floor above the deputy chief director of paper towels, spoke strongly against the tax increases to the American Spectator. And you might as well be speaking to America Free Radio, too, because hundreds of thousands of people are listening to it. American workers should be put in the most advantageous position to succeed in the global economy. However, Treasury Secretary Yellen is working to undermine American competitiveness by proposing to increase domestic taxes, along with attempting to create a tax cartel to stamp out competition and innovation. It's called fascism. It's using the power of government to smash your competitors financially. Despite the G7 agreeing to a 15% global tax rate, Yellen has proposed even more, 21% minimum global tax for U.S.-based multinational employers. These harmful tax increases should be rejected. Absolutely, positively agree with that. Do you have power over the G7? Hell yes, you do. They can make whatever decision they want, but the next time they meet, they're going to realize, ooh, we weren't able to implement this because you're not going to put up with it. You understand me? You're not going to put up with it. How much time we got? Oh, well, we're coming right up on it. Of course, the FBI has violated the Constitution again by trying to track down all the people that were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. The FBI continues to perform warrantless searches through the NSA's most sensitive databases for routine criminal investigations, despite being told by a federal judge in 2018 and 2019 that such a use was an unconstitutional breach of privacy. As I've told you many times, the FBI was founded by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1935. It was founded with bad guys. Oh yeah, bad guys going after bad guys. Absolutely. And they were founded in corruption because they have a charter. And what is that charter? Well, the charter is that they will protect the interests of the Democrat Party. And they have been doing that ever since 1935. They have committed murder. They have committed witness intimidation. They have fabricated evidence. They've committed obstruction of justice. They've committed perjury, blackmail, subterfuge, and now they are violating the Constitution again by spying on ordinary Americans. Now, while such reports focus on the extent that the FBI violated civil liberties, the rule of law, and constitutional restrictions against illegal search and seizure, it is of no consequence because there is the matter of timing that makes them even more explosive. As reported here many times, the Democrat Party knew about and was planning for the volatile situation on January 6th. They opened the doors for it. They had a method to their madness. They wanted to stop Arizona from the debate, which they did. And they bought themselves a lot of time. And Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals used that time to mortally wound America. The day before the rioters were even inside Congress, I was on my way up. I was driving, and I heard it on the radio the day before. They announced it on the radio. They plan on having violence because Antifa and BLM had both made credible threats that they were going to do something. The pipe bombs had already been set. Yeah, the pipe bombs had already been set. Of course they were ready for it. You know, it's been over 5 months, and the FBI still has not apprehended the hooded suspect who placed the pipe bombs near the RNC and DNC headquarters in Washington, D.C. on the 5th, the day before. We heard about it on the radio. The FBI's latest wanted poster provides photographs and few identifying characteristics of the subject. They know who he is. They know who he is. Calculating height from the video footage is a simple matter of geometry. Don't want to get into the actual details of the calculation, but in general, they could identify this guy. They have pretty good images and a pretty high res. In the DC pipe bomb case, the suspect was seen on video standing on a DC street on South Capitol Street on the night of January 5th. And from the camera angle, the suspect's height is roughly even with the height of a nearby handrail. Not a complicated problem for the good old FBI experts to solve if they wanted to. But they don't want to solve they don't want to solve the problem. They don't want the guy to be found. If they find him, I think they're going to kill him because he's a loose end. The FBI has pleaded with the public, saying, we need your help to identify the individual responsible for placing these pipe bombs. But when people reach out to the FBI, they come back and say the FBI has no further information to supply on this matter other than what has already been released. They don't want to know. My guess is this guy's in the same place as Seth Rich's murderers. He's dead. Either way, I'm saying, I can't help but notice that one group of targets, those who entered the Capitol building on January 6th, are pursued in the public sphere more aggressively than the person who set the pipe bombs the night before. I rest my case. I could just tell you, them's the facts. Now listen. This is America Free Radio. We're here every Wednesday night, every Sunday night at 8 o'clock. We stream through 6 different platforms, including Foxhole. We love our friends in Foxhole. And I monitor all the chats. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't give away the lemons. Hang on a second. I'm going to do that right now. I got at least 30 seconds left. So they're going out right now. 28 seconds, we're going to find out who the 5 lucky listeners in DLive.tv of America Free Radio are going to receive those lemons. I do my very best to put together good content here, have a good sound, and give you a good faceplate. But this is all very important information. It gets out when you share it. You got to share it on these different platforms. Share it on Twitch. All right, here we go. Vonnie Kinsey, 46.5. Anilza 11, 27.1. Storms Up 19.9. And Red Rover 3, a new name, 16 lemons. Thank you so much for listening to America Free Radio. I'm Brooks Agnew saying peace, Earth Explorers.
listening to Revolution